Welcome to Why Not Read Alpha Flight with Chris and Tom, a podcast where we take your favorite series seriously. I'm Chris Baker.
And I'm Tom Flynn. In this
Hi folks, Tom from the future here. This episode was supposed to be about Alpha Flight number 19 and Power Pack number 10, so we brought on some Power Pack experts to help us get it right, and the conversation was so fun, we ended up spending far more time on that issue than expected. So, enjoy this single issue episode, and next episode we will be back in the warm embrace of our favorite Canadian super team.
Before we dive into the glorious 80s soap opera with superpowers we all love so dearly, we have a fun guest appearance to cover. Astute listeners will remember that in Marvel Team Up Annual number 7, Sasquatch threw a giant goddamn alien snake out of Benicio del Toro's spaceship into the Atlantic Ocean. We're going to pick up on that loose thread in the pages of Power Pack, that team of children. Team up with Marrina. Take a drink. Because it's a water-based adventure, so Marrina's going to be there. I mean, if you're going to throw someone from Alpha Flight into Power Pack and it's going to be like water-based, it has to be Marrina, right?
And to help us get Power Pack right, we have the hosts of Jeff and Rick Present Unpacking the Power of Power Pack. Thanks for helping us out, folks. Say hi to the listeners.
Welcome to listener to this show, which is not our show. Our podcast is actually Jeff and Rick Present Unpacking the Power of Power Pack,
where we journey through each issue of the most underrated Marvel series of the 80s while drinking beer,
analyzing awesome and amazing adolescent adventures, and absorbing alcohol.
I am Jeff.
And I am Rick. And that's our introduction.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Listeners, we have been recording for over half an hour, and we finally forced ourselves to, get on track, because I gotta tell you, these guys are fantastic, and we're gonna have a lot of fun. So,
the only problem I'm seeing right now is the fact that there is 4 guys with beards. We're all white. I don't know who's speaking anymore. I don't know if it's me. I don't know if it's Tom. I don't know if it's Jeff. I don't know if it's... I don't know who's speaking anymore. I don't know what's going on.
You know, we speak to a specific niche. We've been looking at our demos through the Buzzsprout stuff, and we realized that we should probably be reaching out to New Balance for a sponsorship because everybody's over 50, white and male.
Yeah.
Or sunscreen. Copper tone might be a good one. Yeah. Think of your audience. They comic book readers,
Gold
so
bond.
They may not go outside.
Gold
I
bond.
say that from personal experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get real podcasters on here, and immediately we're talking about sponsors and advertisements.
Yeah, we don't have any. So
I don't have any.
Wait for Manscaped
Jeff and Rick...
to come talk to us. That's when you know you've made it.
Now, we do a thing where we take a drink when we hit some of the main themes of Alpha Flight, and we even have a sub-series where we talk about non-Alpha Flight stuff called Why Not Have a Drink. But part of your episodes is that you all discuss the beer that you've brought. Tom, you have notes here about what they brought last time, because you're like the beer guy. I am not.
Not last time, but when you guys covered this particular issue of Power Pack, you brought Sea Monster from Ballast Point, which was a bit of a heavy hitter. Made a lot of sense given the theme of the episode. Also, if you happen to look up what that label looked like, the mutant anglerfish on the label bears more than a passing resemblance to Marrina's broodmate from Alpha Flight number 14 through 16. And does Power Pack ever talk about broodmates? Is that just the podcast I'm stuck on where we talk about fucking broodmates all the goddamn time?
No,
and they're haunting?
No.
I don't think we've ever
Pack...
talked about broodmates.
No, Power Pack doesn't really go into too much sex, at least until we get into, what was it, the... not Avengers Assemble, Avengers Academy. Then we get into a little bit of then we get into a little bit of that. Not too much sex talk.
Well,
but...
and I saw that one of the kids, Julie, I think, ends up on the Loners team later on with the Runaways, and I'm sure that got a little grown up.
Well, it got grown up, but yeah. Actually, no, there was sex in that one with Julie because she was attacked by one of the producers on the show, and she smacked him down. That sounds like a fun read,
I gotta tell you.
Actually, it was pretty good. It was pretty good because they handled it right, and she's like, no, this is not happening. And she's like, I've got powers. I don't have to be here, and you can go sit on your butt. So
it was she's that was her stage of being Hollywood Julie. So instead of being kind of a strawberry blonde, she was very beach blonde. and trying to get into the Hollywood scene and become an actress. And she was putting on because she's a highly intelligent, well-read individual. But for Hollywood Julie, she's, oh, bubbles, bubbles, ha, just fun and just giddy and just doing that LA lifestyle. And yeah, she had finally gotten a chance. She had her break to become an actress. She was all excited about it. And this person's like, we are going to save so much money on effects because she can fly. And we can edit out a little rainbow trail behind her. Doesn't matter. She's beautiful. She's athletic. She can play anybody we need. And she can fly. Also, hey, you want to be famous, right? So.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that the plot of, like, the Dazzler initial appearances as well as the Longshot initial miniseries?
Yeah.
I mean, if you
I don't see the problem with it. Recycle,
works.
buddy.
Yeah, Chris, what are you trying to say? Like, what's the problem with this? Like, I don't know.
Like, I think I've read 3 distinct Spider-Man titles that have had essentially that plot of, we'll save on special effects. It'll be gold, Jerry.
You got 60 years of comics. You don't think things are going to show up like over and over again every so often? Come on.
Come on now. Come on. Hey, getting back to the beer, a couple of things to point out. One, the Sea Monster Imperial Stout, we liked it. A little bit. We gave it each a 3, which actually that's probably mid for us. So it's probably not our tops.
5. Yeah, that would be a fine plus kind of
fine
rating.
plus.
Like, this is acceptable. It's
acceptable.
Fine.
But the way we do this is I go out and I spend an exorbitant amount of money on beer, and I put them in these nice little paper bags, so Jeff has no clue at all what he's getting. And so he has no clue at all.
Oh, that's awesome.
Actually, my daughter labeled these. My daughter went out and bought the beer with me and labeled the bags. And she's only 13. It was awesome. Anyways, she helped me sort these out with this time too. But this one I got especially for this show because I thought it would fit. So, Jeff, if you would not mind reaching into your sack and pulling out what you find there, is that okay to say on the show?
Oh my God, I am so glad you guys are liberated by a not explicitly family-friendly podcast. So by all means.
Yeah, that's our show. This is yours. Let me reach into this mystery bag and pull out you bugger. Labatt Blue Canadian Pilsner imported beer.
I could have done so much stuff. I could have done so many different things. I half looked for something that had maple syrup in it, but I said no. But I said no. We are going to go ahead with Labatt Blue because
it is a blue can with white lettering, and story time on it is government warning.
Let me help you out there, Jeff.
Pregnant women, whatever.
Labatt Blue. Pristine Pilsner, brewed with the finest ingredients, including renowned Hallertau hops, 2-row malted barley, and pure barley. Labatt Blue has a clean, refreshing taste with distinct hop aroma, delicate fruit flavors, and a slightly sweet aftertaste. Sure. Cheers, eh?
Tom, what do you have on tap?
I showed up with Off Color Brewing's Beer for Power Plays. It is described as and is a Baltic-style strong dark lager, clocking in at 7.5%, high gravity, from Chicago, quite nice. I liked it because it is more of a fall beer, and even though it's been clocking like 75 degrees here the last few days, I don't care. It's fall, so I'm just drinking dark beers now. Also, I appreciate that power is showing up in the label since we have you fine gentlemen joining us this evening.
I think you're going to have a much more enjoyable time drinking your beer than we are in ours, but that's okay because I enjoyed the reaction I got from everybody. So my day is complete.
Good. That was so good.
Well, for my part tonight, I am having a freezer old-fashioned because it had to be in the freezer because ice doesn't work for recordings. You guys probably know that. It is made with Canadian Superior Blended Whiskey, which was not on the bottom shelf. It was on the floor in front of it. So the label boasts that it is, quote, distilled and blended under the supervision of the Canadian government, end quote, to which I say... So was Department H. And Weapon X. So I expect there to be some nanobots in this or some mind control chemical that they will use to keep me from realizing that they have replaced Tom with an actual wild Sasquatch.
Or there could just be a little bit of tainted metal in there.
A lot of tainted metal.
Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers. At least we're drinking water.
A prost to podcasting and comics.
Oh God, that's horrible.
And new friends. Enjoy your rag squeezings there, Chris.
No, next time I'm just going to buy a bottle of Malort and I'm going to have it on hand and I'm going to describe the Malort. Have you ever had it? It's the worst thing you'll ever taste. It tastes like burning Bigfoot dick. It's awful. And yet...
Well, hey, Chris, you always wanted to know what it was like to be Aurora. Here you are.
So now you have split personalities?
No, now I know what Bigfoot's dick tastes like. Tastes like Malort and dirt.
That actually makes a lot of sense when you think about it.
Yeah, I don't think I've said it on the show, but I have joked with Tom before that, like, when Sasquatch turns back into Walt after he's been out in the woods for, like, days doing Sasquatch stuff, do all the, like, twigs and sticks and leaves and bits of poop that he couldn't wipe out of his fur just, like, drop into a pile around his now human size that doesn't have hair to hold it in?
I would like to say yes.
Either that or it just all of a sudden just mats to his body and is this impenetrable shell that can't be...
And he gets a feeble armor rating from his detritus.
Your podcast is definitively family-friendly. I wouldn't say ours isn't, but we do curse, on occasion, and frankly, our subject matter doesn't allow us to not curse.
I've heard some riboladry from you guys.
I mean, we are dealing with sex, death, and failure on a regular basis. The team-ups are usually family-friendly. Not always, but usually.
Same.
They have their moments. So for our listeners, what made you guys want to focus on Power Pack? We've unpacked for our listeners what brought us to Alpha Flight, but since we're intersecting here, and this is our chance to look at something other than our cast of weirdos, what brought you into Power Pack such that you've done, 160 something episodes now?
Oh, more than that. We're at 172 plus some yearly crossover event stuff, and there's a bunch.
There's a bunch, yeah. And we also have our Patreon, which we've up to 70 in that one. So
we do one of those a month. We do we release 2 normal ones a month. So every other week we record, and on one of those recording days we do a regular and a Patreon. So once a month for the Patreon.
The reason why and how we could possibly do something so long with only 62 episodes in the main series is we have expanded where Power Pack lives. If Power Pack shows up in a comic book, whether it be a main role, whether it be a supporting role, whether it be 2 little dots up there in the corner, which we are pretty sure is the Power Pack team, we will cover it. And if it's an alternate universe, we put that on our Patreon. If it's the main 616, it's on our feed, and we try to do it as in order as possible. So that's why we're up to, we just finished the first volume of FF, the Future Foundation. We just are starting the second volume of that with Alex Power in there. How we got into this is it was a midlife crisis. I decided that I wanted to do a podcast, and I talked to Jeff about it, and Jeff said, yes, this would be a good use of our time.
I have a 4-month-old, so why not? Yeah, it was Chris. Yeah, Rick was saying that he had he's like, I'm having a midlife crisis, and I either need to ruin my marriage.
Yeah, I either have an affair, buy an expensive car, or do a podcast. And my wife was insistent that I do a podcast. So I don't know. At this point in time, the car might have actually been cheaper.
There's resale value to the car.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yes!
Let me take a drink on that one.
You have just ruined Rick's day, Tom.
But yeah, so I was having dinner with Rick and over at his house. Me and the families were doing that, and he was like, "Hey, I just recently reread Power Pack. Have you ever heard of that?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I love Power Pack. I used to read that a bunch, years ago. I still got them stored over at my mom's place." And he's like, "Oh." Then a week or two later, we go out to do kind of like a surprise birthday party for him over at McMinimums, and me and him are talking, and he's like, "Hey, midlife crisis thing, I'm thinking about doing a podcast about Power Pack. Would you like to do that with me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds great. Let's do that." And so then we spent a lot of time discussing it and how we were going to do it and what we were going to add to it and how we were going to go about it. And then we spent like 2 weeks coming up with our podcast name, things along those lines. But yeah.
We're very familiar with that particular origin story. The podcast name came a slightly faster than that, but we did go through about 9 hours worth of recording the first goddamn episode before we figured out exactly what we needed to do and what needed to sound like.
I was assuming that our first recording on the first episode was going to be a practice episode, and then it was released. So
Nice.
We were the opposite.
Yeah. No, that was by that point in time, we were good. We knew what was going on. We wrote out a script like you guys do, and we figured out what we wanted to do, how we wanted to say it. And as far as our own personal, touch points to Power Pack, I mean, this is what we read as a kid. When I was a kid, first thing I picked up was an Incredible Hulk issue that had X Factor in it. And I was like, Incredible Hulk's kind of cool, but I want to know about these X Factor cats. I want to know who these people are. That got me to X Factor. That got me to X-Men. And somewhere in there, I found Power Pack. And what's the main connection with all those? Louise Simonson. So,
Correct, yes.
Much later, I all of a sudden realized that Louise Simonson is what really got me into comic books. But Power Pack is something that I collected as a kid. And I remember a lot of my friends were like, why are you reading that kitty comic? I'm like, it's cool and it's enjoyable. And there's a lot of more adult themes than you would think that would be in there. Yes, it's focused on kids, but at the same time, that's what we are. And that's what we wish we could be. These kids are living what we wish we could have. And that's the superpowers that, usually you see the other adults have. We're too young to be Captain America or Iron Man or Wolverine or Cyclops or anybody like that. But the Power Kids, yeah, that's our age. We could be them. So what's that going to be like is if we get these powers from these magical aliens? What's that going to look like if we're in that universe with these other superpowered individuals who are doing all this kick-ass stuff? What does it look like for them? It's a fascinating story.
And it hits a totally different note than like the quote-unquote kids of the X-Men or the quote-unquote kids of the New Mutants or the kids of Generation
the
X, where
teenagers.
those are definitively post-puberty teenagers, as opposed to kids. And it's hard to get that note right, and Louise Simonson does a great job.
Also with the mutants, with all of them, they're out. Their families, their friends, everybody knows that they've got powers. Yeah, they've got like a secret identity, sure, but most part.
Or, Professor Xavier convinced their parents that they never existed.
Well, he's a goddamn jerk, so, whatever.
I make a patch of that. It's a word balloon, and it says, Professor Xavier is a jerk, and it's in the red logo
We
and
need
everything.
that. We need that. It's a relatable story, and it's got some good art. It's got some good storytelling, and it's got characters that you do start to enjoy and like. And that's what we got into.
Well, speaking of the characters, can you give us a quick hit on who each of the Powers kids is? Power. Is it Power? Thank you. Each of the Power kid is, and what their powers are, and how they got their powers. There was a horse from space.
Yeah,
right?
that's about right.
Yep, Chimelians. Yep, Space Force aliens.
Yeah, chameleons. They show up in this story.
Well, for our listeners, the Chimelians were the people who made the flute that controlled Snake Eyes in Marvel Team Up number 7, which is because it was written by Louise Simonson, and she was pushing the Chimelians through everything that she ever touched. So,
and the chameleons are still there. I mean, one of them's married to Black Bolt. They're in the Inhumans patriarchy or monarchy,
He's
whatever
many
you will.
things.
wait, Black Bolt is a brony?
Black Bolt's got five.
Yep.
He's got five or
an
six
Inhuman,
wives.
He's got a Centurion. He's got a.
He's polygamous.
Dire Wraith,
He's
got a Budon. What are they?
Dire Wraith.
Budon.
Oh,
Bodak,
well, that sounds
Bodak
horrifying.
Horseman. Badoon. Thank you, Badoons, and then Chimelian. So yeah.
Man, that guy gets around.
But to paraphrase somebody who recently was talking about Alpha Flight, Black Bolt fucks. I don't know. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, except he doesn't.
but he does it quietly.
Oh my
But he
God.
does it quietly.
Now I'm thinking about Puck and Black Bolt like hitting the underground bars in like Ontario or wherever, and just like Puck having to wingman for this clear 5U specimen of a man who has to be silent.
Black Bolt don't need no wingman.
No, he doesn't need a. He's going to be a daddy in a leather club, and he's just going to go have fun.
He needs to be in Quebec City or Montreal and run into Northstar, and Northstar's gonna be like, well, shit.
Yep.
He just starts puppy dogging after Black Bolt the whole night long.
Man, this guy can ignore me like nobody. He's outside a word to me all night.
Which would absolutely be Northstar's turn on. Like, oh, you're not interested? Now I have to be with you. Win.
He is the most dramatic theater kid you've ever met, other than his sister.
So we have a chameleon scientist who's looking at Earth and is very interested in this Jim Powers scientific research. It's this mechanical device that, if activated, will actually blow up the world. So Alfire Whitemane, this chameleon scientist in a smart ship called Friday, gets really curious about it. Unfortunately, he's attacked by the chameleon's worst enemy, the Snarks. The ship is blasted down and crashes down next to this family's house. And the 4 kids go outside to check on this, and they get caught up in this big old fight that's going on. Alfire Whitemane is dying, and he's like, the only way I can protect these kids is if I gift them my powers. And he's got all these cool powers, and he splits them up between the 4 kids, and that's how they get their powers.
Okay, now this sounds like 80% of the story of Captain Marvel 1.
Yeah, there's also a little bit of Captain Planet in there, too.
Lantern ring there where if you poke a nearly dead alien, they give you superpowers. Yep.
It happens.
It's amazing. All you gotta do is find one. That's
I mean,
right.
they got a cool spaceship out of the deal, too. A smart ship that can talk called Friday. And we're going to get into that, too. Yeah. We've got the oldest is Alex Power. He's 12. He goes by 0G, or he goes by G, which, let me tell you, that doesn't hold up after the 80s or 70s or 50s.
Oh, no. My friend, one of my my lifelong friends has been calling himself G since he was 14 years old in 1993.
Yeah, but he's doing that as G Money. This is actually, golly gosh darn G.
No. I have to explain this. He wore a lot of Green Bay Packers gear, and so he always had a big G on his chest.
I am very good friends with G as well. I somehow know most of Lincoln, Illinois. It's a thing. Anyway, I did not know that is the origin of G as a nickname until
breaking news, folks.
So, to me, G is a perfectly fine name for this kid to be running around with, because I practically knew a 12-year-old who called himself G. And this was 30 years ago. He still calls himself G to this day. He makes the playlists for our podcast that we
You know what? More power to him then, and this one's to you, buddy. Alex
Yep.
Power, his power is to increase or decrease the gravity of objects that he touches.
His younger sister, Julie Power, is age 10, and she's known as Lightspeed. And she is the second oldest Power sibling, and she flies very fast and leaves a rainbow trail behind her.
We have Jack Power, who is the second youngest, and he goes by Mass Master. Let me say that again, because your show, we have to watch what we say, and that is Mass Master, not Ass Master. Thank you for asking. He controls his molecular density, and he's able to become a large cloud or a 6-inch mini-me that weighs about 68 pounds.
I love how you do the voice for him on the show. I think that's one of the treats of the whole show is every time we get a
Listen
quote
up,
from Jack.
dog breath. I'm an 8-year-old, and this is obviously how an 8-year-old sounds. I'm not a curmudgeonly old soul. You're a curmudgeonly old soul, you so-and-so.
When we had to whip that out in front of Louise Simonson and June Brigman, who created these characters, we did not know what was going to happen, and they both laughed hysterically. So we're that's good. We got them.
He has an old soul. And in my version,
he has an old soul.
That's a prospector. So.
By far, the premier voice work of the whole thing was me realizing,
he really
he's a grumpy old man. You're right. That does sound like what a grumpy old man would say.
Finally, we have Katie Power, and she's 5 years old. She's the youngest Power sibling, and she goes by the name of Energizer. She has the abilities to disintegrate matter, and then she can convert that into energy, which she can expel into power balls. Now, if you notice a theme on here, the entirety of the power set is basically E equals MC squared, and Louise Simonson said, I'm going to take that and make it into superpowers. So you have C, the constant, light speed, ergo light speed, force of gravity, you have G or G power or 0G, you have mass, which is mass master, and energizer, which is energy. So there you go. That's how they came up with that.
That makes me so goddamn happy that is the origin of like their power set. That is exceptional. That is
so far beyond what John Byrne ever put into any of the characters of Alpha Flight that I don't know what to say.
Well, John Byrne would just rip the female character's clothes off and call it a
day. Also, you have to realize that Wheezy always wanted to have a comic book that she could do, and she had this running around her head. The one thing that she was missing was an artist that could draw kids. And it just so happened that June Brigman had...
Not John Byrne.
No, not John Byrne.
Sure.
But... she was complaining to Carl Potts about this, and June Brigman had just come in and dropped off a bunch of stuff. You know, here's my art that I do. And she had been drawing kids like on Boardwalk, doing like sketches of kids on the Boardwalk. So Louise Simonson's talking to him, and Carl Potts is like, well, how about this? And they just yelled out, they're like, June, come in here. Meet Louise Simonson. why don't you guys work together? And you have somebody who can draw kids and come up with these great characters. And also, June Brigman loved horses. So she's talking about these aliens, and she's like, well, I can draw horses really well. So she made the aliens look like horses. And it works. And it worked. So you just get the right artist with the right writer, and you come up with something good.
Yeah.
Well, I have enjoyed listening to you talk about Power Pack. I have enjoyed Power Pack when I run into them. Wolverine runs into them with Sabretooth, right? During the Mutant Massacre.
Yes, in the Morlock tunnels.
Yeah, and the kids take down Sabretooth, and that's canon, and it will always be canon. The Power Pack kids have beaten Sabretooth. Suck it, everybody else.
Yeah. Spider-Man has also referred to them as big guns of the Marvel Universe, because they actually are. They hold the base structure of the universe in their hands.
Right. I mean, like, their baseline powers are absurd, and how far they can push it seems to be more about what they understand of what they can do than it is like there's a limitation to it.
It's a lot more of imagination and learning how to use their powers, because they also do power swaps around throughout that. Like, Jack eventually gets the G power, and when he's using it, he's going to town and just going crazy with it, and everybody's like, Alex, the original person who had the G power, is like, I never could do that. He's like,
It's like Iceman and
yeah, exactly.
Frost, yeah.
You give somebody else your powers who's been thinking about it for a while, like, why don't you use your power in this way?
Yeah, but you don't want to say that to them. You would be like, hey, Bobby, have you ever thought about freezing a river and appearing 3 miles down it? You don't need those.
The only reason Emma Frost didn't tell him that was because she's like, one day I'm going to get those powers and I'm going to school him.
I'm gonna fuck that guy.
Exactly. There's never been a censored thought that went through Emma Frost's mind, especially as it pertained to shitting on someone else. Let's be very clear about that.
She goes out of her way to shit on other people.
Well, so the Power Pack kids, they are kids, they have parents, they have both a mom and a dad, they live in an apartment in New York City, and their parents do not know they have powers. Now, Tom, you lived in a city apartment with a bunch of kids. Were your kids able to poop without you knowing about it in that type of environment?
I grew up at basically the same time as these comics were being written in an apartment in a city, and were these the most delinquent parents imaginable? Like look, I get that this is the era of, do you know where your children are, going
it's
off
8
on the
PM,
goddamn TV. I get it, but this seems
it is
a little
the
much.
biggest plot point that they use in the story. Should we tell our parents? Shouldn't we tell our parents? It's really hard to hide from our parents. We have to wait till they're asleep or not. Part of it, too, is at one point in time when the parents start to find out, the chameleons get in there and they start messing with the parents' minds to make them forget about it and make them highly suggestible and saying, no, this is fine. It's not until you get to the Inferno where you have their big villain, the Boogeyman. And let me tell you, that sounds goofy name and everything, and he's kind of a goofy villain until he gets to Inferno.
No, he
gets scary in Inferno.
He becomes very scary.
But at that point in time, that's when they're forced to see that their kids have powers, and their minds break. But we also have to realize that they are the best parents in the Marvel Universe, if for no other reason that their design was based on Walt and Louise Simonson. You look at the pictures of the Power Kids' parents, and that's Walt and Wheezy. That's them.
Their apartment is Walt and Wheezy's old apartment in New York.
The posters you see on the wall, those are posters they had in their apartment.
Oh, man.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
You know what, Tom? Maybe we picked the wrong book. I don't know. I think we need some more Louise
maybe
Simonson in our life.
maybe you've made me read so much fucking Alpha Flight, and now you tell me maybe we picked the wrong fucking book. Jesus,
you know what?
Christ.
We're going to have to cut that whole bit. As fantastic as it is, we're going to have to cut that whole bit because we can't ever express any type of negativity towards Alpha.
Oh, yeah, you can.
Oh, I do it all the time. Kiss
No,
my
you
ass.
express negativity toward Canada. And not the MCU Canada, the real Canada.
No, and you know what? Also, that's a lie. Well, I mostly express negativity towards Walt because he's the worst fucking character in Marvel Comics.
Oh, by the way,
Reed Richards is right there.
Oh,
Tom.
we can talk. We can talk about Reed Richards too.
We could talk Reed Richards.
So I'm going to be a downer here, and I'm going to ask you guys to imagine what would happen to the Power Pack in the Ruins universe.
I don't know the Ruins universe.
Is that the one where, like, it reimagines all of the Marvel characters, but, like, sort of more real world. So
Sort
the Hulk
of.
is actually just like a cancerous being that can't die. And
Jean Grey is turning tricks in Washington, D.C., where Professor X is the
Oh,
president.
don't you worry about that. We have covered so much alternate universe stuff with Power Pack.
Yeah.
Power Pack has shown up in Universe X. They have shown up in Age of Apocalypse. They have shown up in Marvel Zombies.
They were in Age of Apocalypse? Hold up. Like, is that in, like, the new stuff that they did, or was that in the original run?
It was in a side.
It was some of the stuff that came up afterwards as they were hunting down the
Okay,
Dark
okay.
Beast and some of the Dark Beast experiments.
It was Beast and Dark
Yeah,
Beast
and so
running around together.
yeah, and so they get into some of Dark Beast experiments. Well, he got the Power
Okay.
Pack kids, and he did an experiment on them, and all that was left was a molded cast of the 4 kids together.
He fused them together with surgery.
That is better than the Ruins universe would have been, because, Jeff, the whole point was that everything was in ruins, and everything was awful, and it,
Universe
I got
X.
the... No.
Terrible.
No. I enjoyed Universe X. Ruins is the worst thing I have ever read, okay?
Now I
It
need
is
to
the
look into
worst
it.
thing I've ever read. But,
And you've read Alpha Flight.
oh God, the meanest thing I ever heard about Alpha Light, the guy who does the My Marvelous Year podcast, he was starting in on 1983, and he said, all right, well, I just got done with 1983, and we're going to go through it. I read some great stuff, and then I also read some Alpha Flight. Ouch.
Oh, we do have the Marvel Zombies coming up really soon. Also, my daughter did see that was coming up. She goes, I'm not reading that, right? I said, no, you're not going to read that, honey. My daughter can't handle
I'm not
zombies.
a fan,
but no.
She doesn't like
Yeah,
it.
it's not my
The
bag.
kids, that's pretty bad in that issue, too. We're going to have fun with that one. The
kids ain't all right.
Oh, they don't end up well in that one.
All right, well, I guess we ought to get to the issue that we've been talking about, because we have been talking for an hour and 12 minutes.
I warned you.
I suspected. All right, we're going to get on to Power Pack number 10, Sea Hunt, cover date May 1985, written by Louise Simonson, penciled by Brent Anderson, inked by Bob Wyacek, colored by Glynis Ween?
Glennis Ween.
Thank you. Glennis Ween, lettered by Joe Rosen, and edited by Carl Potts and Jim Shooter as editor-in-chief.
so this being an Alpha Flight podcast, I don't know that we have to go too much into the action here, especially since Marrina barely does anything but emo it the hell up. She contributes a water spout at one point, which is, great.
Oh, she makes the first Sharknado, Tom.
She does.
She does make the first
And she doesn't get
Sharknado.
any residue off of that either. She doesn't get any money off that. No.
Everybody forgets about Marrina.
Well, come on. It's Marrina. But otherwise, the kiddos kind of handle things, and they handle it really well. I gotta say, reading a Power Pack issue, and these small children are competently handling a problem to a successful conclusion in a way that the adults that I read on a regular basis can't in any way, shape, or form it got me thinking about some things.
So
Anyway,
I'm reading this book, and I'm like, hey, why isn't that one trying to kill the other? Because that's what Sasquatch would have done to Northstar if he said that. If he called him dog breath, he would totally rip up a tree and try to hit Northstar.
Because they're family. And by law, you can't kill family until you're over the age of 18.
Also, Power Pack gets it done. They're effective and underappreciated.
I really appreciate Jeff taking that opportunity to just really rub it in. How much better his team of heroes is than
No,
than
hey,
ours.
Alpha Flight is fantastic. Alpha Flight is great. I think we can all agree on it.
Power Pack, 4 kids. I'm going to say it right now. None of them have never died.
Okay, they've got like 18 up on Alpha Flight.
Okay, but they're also children in the Marvel universe. They do have some plot armor that's protecting them. Just putting it out there.
Fine.
And in some of the alternate stuff, they have had deaths.
On the other side, too, they do have a 5th member, which is Franklin Richards, who's a god. So, meh.
That does help, yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to have him on speed dial.
If you're going to get a 5th member that is not technically a sibling, it could be like Cousin Oliver from Growing Pains or something. Or was that Growing Pains? Or
That was Brady Bunch, Cousin Oliver.
okay, thank you.
You could not have picked a kid that looked more like Franklin Richards.
Except that once we get John Bogdanov and he starts drawing Franklin Richards, he draws him like his son, and his son's name is Kal-El. So...
And if you ever see, Franklin Richards with his teddy bear, that's Kal-El's teddy bear.
Yes, John Bogdanov named his son Kal-El because comic books.
Keep in mind, him and Wheezy did a lot of Superman stuff, created Doomsday, all the things, yeah.
So as I'm out selling patches and whatnot, I sell a lot of X-Men patches, and I get to talk to a lot of X-Men fans. And one of them was really excited to see that I had a Magic with a K, an Ilyana Rasputin patch that was available. And he said, yeah, she's my favorite. And he pulls up his sleeve, and he has a Magic tattoo. And he says, my daughter's name is Ilyana.
Nice.
And I'm like, wow, that I'm really glad that I've got something here that can make you smile, because boy, people get connected to. I mean, every character.
Is somebody's
That's
favorite.
why we do the shows.
Except for
Mariana,
Mariana.
is because Marrina.
Whatever.
Marinara.
Marinara.
I can't tell if that was on purpose or not, and I'm loving it either way.
You say tomato,
great.
I say marinara.
Marina might be somebody's favorite. It's possible everybody's got a favorite character, and it's not everybody's favorite.
No, but nobody's favorite.
She was Namor's favorite until, she blew
Yeah,
that.
she turned into a giant sea
Well,
serpent.
she would have been Namor's favorite until Sue Richards walked by again.
Well, that's a standard. That's a given.
Yeah, I mean, that's table stakes.
I mean, if she didn't know that he had a hall pass for Sue, I mean, what was she doing getting involved here? I do like the bit where you repeat all of his names in the dramatic fashion. Yeah, that's great.
I had forgot that. I was re-listening to that podcast. I was like, oh my God, I forgot we did that.
Yeah, that was great.
But this is also the point. Like, part of the reason that we're not going to go blow by blow through this issue is because you guys, already crushed
you nailed it.
And episode 10 of Unpacking the Power Pack, you guys lay out the episode, you lay out how it happens, and you also, perhaps unintentionally, lay out exactly how little Marrina does in this particular adventure.
She hung out with Friday. She made a Sharknado.
And she felt bad about herself.
She felt bad about herself. She temporarily blinded Snake Eyes, and she also said, in response to Alex going, what were you doing? You could have been killed. And she said, the world would have been a better place.
And she felt bad about herself.
Yeah.
And then, to top it off, she continued to feel bad about herself.
Yeah, you have definitely gotten the full Marrina experience here.
In the annual where she first encountered Snake Eyes and teamed up with Spider-Man and all that, that's when the whole Marrina depression thing really kind of kicked in hard. And then we have this issue, and when Chris and I were talking about this issue before listening to your episode, I made the crack about her being an emo kid that listens to The Cure. And then we listened to your episode, and you guys laid that out, and it's like, shit.
Yeah, big fan of the Smiths.
If you guys are caught up, you'll have heard this. I did lay out a possible alternate reality where Louise actually took over Alpha Flight instead of Mantlo. And I made Chris really, really sad at that possibility.
You still make me sad. Yes, I don't want to. Look, Louise is great with kids, and she has a great touch, and I've enjoyed everything that I've read that she's been involved with. I don't know what she would have done with this level of soap opera. So, but I'm curious.
She would have made it better. If you look at the beginning of X Factor, there was 5 issues of X Factor which were horrible, and then she came in and she righted that ship. So,
So there's actually a funny bit of Kismet kind of at play in this episode, because the back half of it, where we talk about Alpha Flight number 19, which we already recorded because this is the magic of, I don't know, radio, wherever the hell it is we're doing. I go in a bit on the titles Byrne gives to issues 18 and 19. He uses a Hamlet quote in 18. He uses a bit from a poem as the title for number 19. And I do maybe an overly close reading of those things as to how they're informing the issues themselves. And in your issue, your episode on this issue, your episode 10, you also do that where you talk about music soothes the savage beast and how that's a misrepresentation of the poem it's from, and that it's actually about grief. And you connect that up to Marrina and in particular her love of the Cure. I mean, I don't know that there's a much that. That's kind of maybe a blind alley, but it's interesting to me that I had not listened to your episode before we recorded that and made that connection. After listening to your episode, it kind of clicked in my head. Oh shit, that thing that we already recorded is very similar, and it's all going to happen in sort of the same sort of connective tissue. So, it's interesting.
I do think that it is, again, going back to the writer, we've got a character that's not great, and yet we still have put some levels onto her. And I think Louise Simonson did that. She's like, okay, well, we've got the character here. She hates herself. Okay, why? And I think that you do have a good question here. Did the kids get it? can they understand it? I mean, the kids are not that old. They're not going to be that introspective into what she's going through and her feelings of self-hatred. But kids being kids, they do see it as a black and white world.
And you made the point in your episode that this far in the Power Pack's history, they've met Spider-Man and Cloak and Dagger and Marrina, and of those 4 people, 3 of them hate themselves.
Yeah, they've also met Dragon Man, who's, an android, but is basically just, a monstrous baby.
And so they've seen different kind of variations on this, but they can kind of understand a little bit more about Cloak and Dagger. And they do make the point to them. You may hate where you're at, but you still have each other. Marrina, she's got her.
And Alpha Flight, but, she tried to kill one of them, and then everybody else had to go, stop her, and yeah.
Power Pack hasn't met Alpha Flight, thank God. But I'm sure if they did, they would say, well, there's your problem.
Look, if Power Pack met Alpha Flight, they would immediately say, excuse me, I need your dog.
Can I have an adult here? Where's Wolverine, for God's sakes?
He is clearly the better guardian for us than any of you people.
He's great with kids.
He is.
There's a reason why Logan's like, F this, I'm going to go with Baldy.
And Louise would totally agree with that assessment as well, because Marvel Team Up number 7 made it very clear what she thought about Alpha Flight.
Oh my gosh, she reads that. He argued with me that it was not. Spider-Man read them to filth. Yep. It was just like, you are so dumb and so absurd, and this is more complicated than it should be because you're wasting my time. My Peter Parker, who is barely functioning in life. I am better adjusted than any of you guys.
That was a good episode, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
It's all going to be okay because, they're never going to let this team be in charge of anything that's vitally important, like protecting Earth from space. They would never do that.
Yeah, right.
Oh, wait, they do that?
They do. They get their own whole damn space station.
This is why we can't have nice things.
We'll get there, Tom.
It was a clever way to just get them off planet, so that way nobody had to deal with them. Said, hey, why don't you go deal with the alien threat in
What is
space?
Sasquatch going to do in space where there's, no What?
He's going to clog the air filters.
Oh, God. Just dander.
Nice.
Oh, God.
We need somebody up to fix the toilet again.
Walt, I've been telling you have got to only poop as Walt. You are not allowed to poop as Sasquatch on the space station.
But I ate a whole caribou, and I had to get rid of it. Where'd you get a caribou? Space caribou.
Oh God, the gas you.
It was actually a chameleon. It was actually a chameleon that he ate. He ate
puts Arby's farts to shame. All right.
No, chameleon farts. They're just the worst.
No,
man.
they smell like grass.
Oh.
Yeah, grass fed.
I think we're starting to wrap up ever so slightly. A couple more quick questions. Yeah, pretty much.
We've all had our one drink. All right. Everybody still has most of their one drink.
I have an entire quart of maple syrup here.
Careful, boys. He's got the maple syrup in him.
That's a precious commodity. The Canadians are well known for not protecting it, so secure it. The Power Pack kids are pretty well grouped in age and extremely blonde. Are they Mormon? Are they Irish Catholic? Am I doing too much ethno-religious coding here? I don't know. It's just a thing that popped out at me.
No, not true, because you have a very blonde kid, you have a strawberry blonde kid, you have a dirty blonde kid, and you have a brunette.
And they had a rotating mailman where they used to live. That's all I'm saying.
Willie Lumpkin really got all around,
Ooh,
didn't he?
he did.
Yeah.
I just made Tom so mad with a Willie Lumpkin reference.
You made me happy, so I don't know. It's a win-win.
Hey, Willie Lumpkin fucks.
Here's the thing: is that I would rather have
Obviously.
the kids be looking enough like each other with some good differences in hair colors, so that we do not have Steve Rogers, Clint Barton, and Hank Pym all lined up in a row, and us going, "Who's who?"
Very fair.
Well, and my last question, I guess, would be: do you think that the Power Pack kids could understand Marrina? Because remember, Marrina grew up in Newfoundland. And so she sounds like a Canadian boom hour when she talks. And that's what Newfies sound like.
The Power Pack kids are very lucky, and they don't realize it half the time because the chameleons are not only just space ponies, they are magic space ponies.
They got babblefish, don't
And
they?
their smart chip,
basically, yeah.
smart chip has given them the coolest uniforms on the planet. And those uniforms have done some fucked up shit. So the fact that there is universal translators in there, it's not a problem. There's a secret pocket in there that goes to an elsewhere land that you flip the comic book on its side and you read it like that. It's a thing. It's a thing. John Bogdanoff was doing shrooms that day. But it's so awesome.
Pocket universes.
Yeah.
In their pockets.
Yes.
Isn't that shaman's power?
A little bit, except
A little bit.
less destroying the universe.
Okay. Well, yeah.
There's that.
As long as you don't look at
Or
it.
turn it inside out.
But no, here's the thing. I love the idea that these children understood Marrina and her pain in a way that her teammates probably didn't.
Tom, unlike you and your friend, it's hard to see somebody else's pain when you are too much grieving through your own pain.
Yeah, the kids have innocence and empathy still. They haven't been ground down to a shiny Northstar nub. They haven't been shrunk down from their 7-foot height of puffness.
But Tom, you are on your way there.
Oh, believe me, I'm well on my way.
Well, gentlemen, this has been an absolute delight that has taken 3 times longer than any of us expected it to, because we've just been shooting the shit, and we could do this every week with no problems. So, thank you so much.
It for the next 3 hours if you desire.
So thanks so much for hopping on with us, and we'll get all of your links in the show notes. But is there anything you'd like to shout out now, other than your main show or whatever?
Be sure to check out our website, jeffandmerkpresent.wordpress.com. And if you go on there and do a search for Tales of Tales, it's my daughter's comic strip that she does. She does this nice little comic strip that comes out weekly about cats. And it is absolutely adorable, and you would love it. It is a lot of fun. So if you could definitely check that out, we would appreciate it. Also, if you ever want to do a donation, always give donations to the Hero Initiative. They do great things for the comic book creators community. Comic book creators do not have their own pension plan. They don't have their own insurance. It is their own self-employment. And Hero Initiative collects money and has the money there in case of emergencies for comic book creators in times of medical need or any other kind of financial need that they want. It's a great organization. Donate much as you can.
If you want to do that indirectly, you could join our Patreon, because 10% of our Patreon goes to Hero Initiative.
Nice, Jeff. Still some people from there. It's great.
Yeah.
We have not launched ours, but we have plans before the holiday season. You know what I mean? We've got a couple of fun surprises that are coming up ahead of us, but for now, gentlemen, it has been a delight once again.
And as always, we want to thank the powerful people in our packs.
My wife, Cindy, and our daughter, Carrie.
My fiancée, Hillary, and our daughter, Aurora. We love you.
Gentlemen, you're in the packs too.
Well, thank you. I would love to thank my wife, Nora, and my daughters for putting up with me talking right below their bedrooms.
And my wife, Erin, and my elder son, Ned, my middle child, Bobby, and my daughter, Amelia.
And to all of those, we love you.
you.
Until next time.
Costumes off! Why Not Read Alpha Flight with Chris and Tom is brought to you by the Excelsior Embroidery Company, specializing in comic-style patches with over 200 unique designs and 500 unique products. And as of last week, I've got a hat press, so I can put those patches onto hats. I've got some Rainbow X-Men icon hats in a variety of colors, and some cheeky Rogue and Deadpool hats, all for sale at excelsiorembroidery.etsy.com. Follow the shop on Etsy to keep up where I'll be selling in person and to get updates on new products as they roll out. Excelsior Embroidery Company. It's embroidering time.
This episode of Why Not is recorded in Chicago, Illinois, deep beneath stately Baker Manor in a fashionable neighborhood outside St. Louis, and Portland, Oregon. It is produced and edited by Tom Flynn, with background cat noises provided, though not so many this time, by a chonk named Teeny. And everyone, this was a team up. Take a drink.
Cheers!